Welcome to Biz Help for You with host Candy Messer. Entrepreneurs like to focus on the big picture, like profitability, success, and a smooth-running organization. But there always seems to be those little things like taxes, employee compensation, laws, regulations, and more. Now you can get the answers you need in one place. Join us today as we break it all down for you. Now, here's your host, Candy Messer.
Hello and welcome to Biz Help for You with Candy Messer. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you found the information on last week's show, The 5 F's of Franchising, informative. If you are unable to join us and would like to listen to the show, links can be found on our YouTube and Facebook pages, as well as multiple favorite podcast platforms. If you'd like to receive notifications on when our podcasts have been uploaded, please like and subscribe. If there are topics you'd find beneficial or questions you have, please feel free to reach out to me at media@abandp.com. Now let's learn a little bit about our guest today. After many years of trials and self-discovery, Kawan Karadaghi stumbled into fitness and journeyed his way into becoming a master trainer. He wouldn't be where he is without mentors and business partners. He now owns and helps operate 3 gyms and expanding. Kawan now serves as a guide to help others find their strengths by problem solving and continuous improvement. He also hosts a podcast called Value Verse to talk about the stories of mastery, growth, and success. He's fascinated by the intertwining in business, leadership, nature, and philosophy. So Kawan, welcome to the show.
Okay, thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure and love the show and all the work you're doing out there. It's my honor to be on the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to have you here today. I know it's going to be a great topic. But before I get into the meat of the subject, I would like to ask you just a little bit more about yourself. Tell us how you became a business owner.
You know, it's a big journey, a quest that started when I kind of stumbled into fitness, and I basically started working out. And, you know, that led me to a lot of different realizations of improvement and what that was looking like for me. And I translated those to a lot of different areas in my life. So I ran into a bunch of different people, and they basically had just suggested I become a trainer, a personal trainer. And I thought, you know, what's that? What's the trainer do? And what's that entail? So I got into personal training, long story short, after facing so many different, ups and downs and trying to figure out what I want to do in my life. That's sort of the thing I stumbled upon. From there, I nonstop 4.5 years, I was a full-time trainer, and basically became what they call a master trainer, which was 2,251 sessions. And then I got to the 10,000 hour mark, and eventually, getting about 10 certifications along the way. I met my business partner in the process of that, and that's where we had the discussions of where we wanted to go next. And we were looking all around, and lo and behold, the answer was right in front of us. It was fitness all along. So we gotten into understanding how gyms work and different models, and that's when we found the franchise of Anytime Fitness.
Nice. So we want to talk today about, effective versus productive tasks that we're doing. But before we talk about that and the definitions, let's first talk about how do you even know what to delegate? Because that's going to help us determine what's productive versus effective.
I think the great question. I think the importance of that is finding out what is, something that you're good at doing, or something that it's not in your core expertise of doing, right? You go to a film set, or you go anywhere, you don't have the actor running around fixing things. Sometimes they do, but the actor's focusing on acting, right? And then you have this person doing this. And I only know that because I had a few minor stints in acting. So, and that's what kind of it is. It's focusing on your area, what you are great at doing. And it'll show you, business shows you kind of those things that you're great at doing, and things that you don't enjoy or you're not good at doing. And those usually are signals when you're not having fun, when it's something that is not, you don't like doing it. It's probably time to outsource that one and give it to somebody that can take it on with a little bit more momentum or enthusiasm.
Hmm. So, getting into this topic we're going to discuss today, then, what are your definitions of effective versus productive?
It's a great question. I think being productive is doing, you feel like you're doing a lot of things, right? And you're running around all day, you're checking boxes off, you're crossing items off. And then I look back sometimes on the end of the day, or I'll talk to, my mom or loved one. I'll say, I'll say, what did you do today? And back in my head, I'm thinking I did so many things. But then when I
Right.
go back to look at the tangible items I did, or the things that truly matter, I'm only finding a couple of them in there.
Hmm.
So the importance of productive work is that those are things that need to be done to, either maintain or keep things afloat. And effectiveness is what keeps you going forward and growing in business. So the productive side of things for me is sometimes, we were delivering flyers in the beginning of opening the gym, and we're going door to door, and it would take hours upon hours, right? And building furniture, and that would take 6 to 8 hours. And yeah, it seems like you're doing something, but
Right.
at the end of the day, all you do is put together, a desk, or passed out 50, 60 flyers, and then you're spent, right? So the effective side is, hiring somebody to deliver those flyers, or clicking a few mouses and or mouse button clicks and getting those flyers delivered automatically to those houses with just a few clicks, and saving yourself that time and energy. So, it's doing busy work versus work that
Right.
can advance you.
I think that's a good description too, busy work. I think sometimes I get really frustrated too because my inbox is completely full and I feel like I've spent so many hours, even sometimes in a day, going through email and responding to email. But then I'm thinking, I don't feel like I was very productive today. I was busy. But then in your definition, that was still productive. I was doing something, it just wasn't effective, right, for growing my business.
That's right. And having blocks of time dedicated to that is something that I've done. So I'll set aside or carve out maybe an hour to two
Mhm.
hours to dedicate myself solely to a task at hand that needs to be done. Right. So I can look
Right.
back, and say, I did everything today to exhaust this opportunity. And
Hmm.
that's done now. Now I can say,
Right.
okay, I'm waiting on some emails to come back. I'm waiting on some responses to come back. But the main thing is that I did it, and it's
Right.
over there, so that you're not, running around in 10 different directions.
Right. I love putting things on my calendar and blocking time too. I do feel like I've accomplished much more when I can say, yes, I completed that task. It's great. So I would love then to talk about what are examples of exhaustible or non renewable resources.
It's a great differentiator. Exhaustible are things that, like energy,
Mhm.
decision making, even just anything that requires a resource of some kind, right? Even process and thinking, intellectual thinking, right? Things that require decisions, things that require thoughts, and then non-renewable time, right? And other resources that you can't really get back, I guess. So, every day you wake up, you're given a certain amount of energy,
Mhm.
and it's how you use it that day. You can use it doing a bunch of stuff, and then you can get tired and burnt out, a few hours there, right? Right
Okay.
upon waking. That's definitely happened to me. And so now the importance is to say, what am I going to dedicate my energy to today? And how can I make best use of that? Right. So, and on any
Hmm.
given day, I have like probably 15 to 20 small decisions to make, about two or three medium, and usually it's one big one. And
Mm.
I have to do that either every other day or every day. And that's kind of the thing that I look at. I'm like, okay, if I'm doing all these micro decisions along the way, it's like I'm going to be bogged down by the time the afternoon or nighttime rolls around. And it was very much so like that in the beginning, where I just kind of tired myself out by doing all the things. And it's not sustainable, right? So
Hmm.
you can't do that forever. So it's working hard and working smart, that whole talk, right? And
Right.
you want to do both, but you want to work hard in the smart things. You don't want to just
Right.
work hard, just say I worked hard. When I worked before becoming a business owner, or even a personal trainer, I worked in restaurants, and I would run around for 8 or 10 hours a day. And I felt like, what a great job I did today. Right. But I'm like,
Right.
what did you really do? Right. And
Right.
I'm like, there's nothing wrong with working it taught me some powerful things I still hang on to this day. It's just that knowing that you could put that time into something that'll have a bigger return on investment is the
Hmm.
key. And you could be studying a course, or learning a new skill, or putting that time into market research for your business,
Hmm.
to make more contacts, or to go to a seminar, and the return on those are bigger.
Right. Right. I think that's a good way to look at it though, too. Talk about your return on your investment, your return on your time, whichever you're, going to use as that factor to determine that. But yes, looking at what really brings value to your business.
That's right. What's going to give you the biggest return on your actions today? If
Hmm.
you do these little things, what's going to come out of it, versus what are the real things that you need to do, and what's the return look like on those? I think making a list, at the start of the week, usually on Sundays, I'll usually carve out a little time to write down some goals or some things that need to happen, and then just really take the time, take 20 to 30 minutes to write down some top things that you would like to achieve that can get you ahead, and then go out and do them, right? So research has
Hmm.
shown that writing down your goals gives you a more likelihood of achieving them. So I think it's important for business owners, and just productive and effective individuals to do that.
Hmm. That's a great point. So then in business, is it better to be on the offensive or the defensive?
So the both the I think the best way to answer this, right, is to be offensive. Just to clarify, is to be proactive, is to do
Hmm.
things that allow you to advance, right? Allow you to move forward in whatever it is that you're attempting. And then to
Hmm.
be defensive is to safeguard yourself from harm, or from things that can sideline you or take you down, blindside you, right? So you don't want to be too much of each, because then you lose the balance or the harmony. So
Hmm.
a blend of both is necessary. If you're constantly thinking of ways to save money, then you're not going to use money to forward the necessary processes that need to happen. So you
Right.
got to learn, okay, yeah, I'll save this much, but if I spend this much here, I'll advance by this much percentage. Okay, that's a good investment. This is a move we should make. So it's really in the
Right.
strategic way of thinking when to move forward and when to come back a little bit. And you can
Hmm.
apply that to so many things. And as human beings, we all have a blend, or we're all one or the other. And I think having individuals that embody both or different traits is what's key, because sometimes you may not be thinking that way, and but someone on your team is, and listening
Right.
to that person is important, because that might be the right answer.
Right. Well, I'm glad that you said, offensive actually means proactive, because someone might hear the word offensive and like, I don't want to be offensive, right? It comes
Right.
across as a negative. But by thinking of on the offensive just means, like you said, what's going to move you forward in your business. Like, if someone's, offensively moving their football down the line, whatever, they're going to be getting closer to their goal. So there's a good thing. But, you have to have sometimes that in your business, because otherwise, like I said, if you're only playing a defensive position, you're never going to score. Right. So having, like you said, that blend is really good. Um, and not just focusing on one or the other.
That's right. And the only way is to try and test it sometimes also, and to see what those actions bring you, right? And
Mhm.
the importance to remember is that it's the blend of the two. You have to know when
Right.
to pull back. You can't always be offensive and
Hmm.
proactive. Sometimes you got to take a step back to go forward. And that's the whole point of it, is to know when to employ the different ones.
Right. That's good. And that's where strategic planning can come in too, right? So they can determine what they should be doing and when they should be doing that, so it's not like you're just throwing a dart at a board and hoping you get the bullseye, right? You're really planning everything out.
That's exactly right.
So we were talking earlier about delegating and, what is effective work versus productive work. So we know to be effective, we need to be able to get rid of some tasks off our plate. So how would you help someone understand what are you really good at and what should you not be doing anymore?
I think it's important to understand, the difference of what is it that you enjoy doing, what excites you, and what is bringing also, I think we talked about this a little bit before, is getting the return on your time, right? What is
Hmm.
the cost, and what is it going to return on, how much that cost is versus what you'll save as far as time and your resources are concerned. And I think looking at money or revenue in a business is important to differentiate that as a business owner, you have this revenue at your disposal to use that to
Hmm.
forward the business and grow the business. So
Right.
doing things that you're good at is growing the business, right? And remembering why you started. You had a big vision, you had things you wanted to do, and to forward that vision is to keep that moving forward, and to use
Hmm.
those resources like revenue and time, and intellectual decision making, whether that be energy or processes, to forward that and to move the business forward, rather than
Right.
just staying in the same place, and doing things that don't move you forward. So using those two, I think, is key. And understanding that, you might not be a graphic designer,
Right.
and that's
Right.
okay. You don't have to be the best graphic designer in the world, right? So we have beautiful people in the world that they can handle these things for you, and that's why we have these skill sets. So know what you're great at, and identify them, and that way you'll always be doing something that you're great at doing.
Right. And being willing, like you said, to actually invest in some of those services that are going to actually take it off your plate. Like you might think it's better to, not spend the money and just get these tasks done, but you might spend 8 or 10 hours doing something that someone else that you would pay for could do something for you in a lot less time and free you up to actually do things that are going to grow your company. Right. So being willing to invest, not foolishly spending money on things that aren't going to return what you need for the business, but really like looking at them logically and strategically.
And also not forgetting the principle of delegating, but not abdicating, right? I think you
Good
bring up
point.
a good point on your end there, is to not just give away the farm and say, well, I'm hands off, I'm out of here, because then
Right.
you don't know what's going on. And I've fallen victim to that, where to myself, really, when I didn't do that. I didn't know the ins and outs. I had encountered some businesses in the beginning where I was not in a place to be doing those things, and those didn't turn out well, and I had to close up shop there, and I took on a few losses, and those taught me very, very important things and principles. There was to know the business, truly know it,
Mm.
work in the business for a while, understand how everything works, so you can appreciate and really know the mechanics of it, and then know to step back or step away and say, now it's time for me. I have grown from this now, and I can now delegate this. I can do other
Hmm.
things, and then do things with that time. If you're, sitting around watching some YouTube videos on, some reruns there,
Unless
it
it's a
might not
great
be,
podcast.
yeah, unless it's a great podcast like this one, where you're learning some truly educational takeaways.
Right.
Absolutely. That will advance you more than
Hmm.
than putting together some IKEA furniture.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think that's true too. Really looking at what is valuable for what you're doing and what is bringing you, growth in the business too, and focusing on that too. And like you said, just because you delegate something doesn't mean now your time is free. The reason you delegated that is so you could focus on something that's going to grow your business.
That's right. And I've seen it so many times, Candy, where people do things and they tire themselves out, and
Mm,
then it would have just cost you a couple of $100 to outsource this, and
mhm,
be happy, live free, do things you like doing, right? And I think Jim Rohn said it best, is you can make time is the most valuable asset. You can make more money, but you can't make more time. and
mm,
and that's exactly it. You can always get money. Money will come and go in business. It's how
right.
you use it, it's what you do with it. And then, but time you can't get back.
Mm, That's so true. So I would love then to talk about what is a Canvas strategy and what does that have to do with not having a specific skill set?
So the Canvas strategy was popularized by one of my favorite authors, Ryan Holiday, and he talks about it in, I think it's Ego is the Enemy. And then he has another great book, The Obstacle is the Way. I highly recommend those. And he has this, Stoic, philosophy where a Canvas strategy is allowing yourself to be the sort of canvas that others can express themselves through, right? So you are the person or the canvas that allows for that, place, that you're that space that allows for that. And that can mean and take on so many things. So how does that relate in business, right? So sometimes it's taking on the grunt work. Sometimes it's doing things to allow others to express themselves more creatively, and to forward the business more effectively. And that means doing some of the things they don't want to do,
Mhm,
freeing up their time by giving yours, by taking on the grunt work, by
mhm,
offering your resources there, and adding value, saying, don't worry about this, I'll do it. And yeah, it might be an uncomfortable thing to do, and you might not enjoy doing it as well. But understanding that it's temporary as well, and you'll advance as long as you help others advance. And
mhm,
that's the key to getting forward. There was a story I read in a different book about an individual who would just go to meetings and pop in and would start note taking, and people in the meeting would look at him and say, who's this and what's he doing in here. And he would volunteer and say, well, I'm your note taker, don't worry about anything compensation wise, I'm just going to take notes and organize everything for you. And people agreed, and he sat there and took notes, and then eventually they trusted him to take on bigger projects. And then he worked his way up in that field. But it's all about adding value. It's all about
mhm,
stepping forward and saying, I can do things for you, I can take these things off your plate, and showing enthusiasm and proactiveness in doing it. And believe it or not, people will notice that, and they'll say, this person's good to have.
mhm. So, I mean, that sounds really great too for somebody that wants to help out a business owner. But what about looking at that from the perspective of me? Like, I'm super busy and I need to have some help with that. So, how would I identify someone who maybe wants to use that strategy and develop their own business, or helping someone like me as a president of a company be able to delegate some tasks?
There's great programs there, right? So we always have, sometimes we have an intern that comes in, right, and wants to say, well, I want to learn how to have a business too. And I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
come on board. And what can you do here for us here? And I'll, everybody wants something, right?
Hmm.
In what they do when they approach an organization or a career. But seldom or rarely do people come forward and tell the organization what they're going to do for them. So I
Hmm.
think, as people that want to be successful, or want to, everybody wants to be successful. Everybody wants to have, more income, or do important things,
Right.
right? I don't think anybody says, well, I don't want any money. Well, maybe
Mhm.
some,
Right.
but you always want to come forward and say, well, yeah, of course. Now, what can I do to help others do that? And
Hmm.
then in turn, I can be successful. So I think, setting up some programs for people to come in and learn from the day to day, and coming in
Hmm.
and helping out, and having them understand and grasp that real world experience is key. And some of our younger generation could truly benefit from doing that. Give yourself
Hmm.
2 weeks to just pop in some places there, and take on some tasks and see what you'll learn from it.
Right. I've actually done that too with a few, especially there was a program that was like a hire a youth program that the state actually reached out to me at one point and said, we would love to be able to get some kids trained. Do you have anything in your company that's open? And the first time that I ever did that, I ended up hiring the person who came in because I actually was able to create a position and she hadn't had any real world experience. And I was able to teach her some things and she stayed with me for quite a few years. And I actually did that a couple times where I was able to hire after the fact, but there are sometimes I just did it to educate and then, allow them to have skills that they could go do something else. But it is really nice when you can like even impart your wisdom to somebody and then in the long run, it actually benefits you and you weren't necessarily even intending for that to happen. So that's happened a few times for me.
One of the best things to do is pass along the things that we've learned and
Mhm.
help out the next person to achieve what it is they want to achieve. I think that's so important to do, and find those individuals that will take joy in doing them. I think
Mhm.
one of the best things to do is just to leave something behind that um, you can leave when we decide to not do that anymore, and leave the
Mhm.
world a little bit better.
Right. So I would love to talk about ideation and imagineering and why are those things important to a business?
It's a great question. I think everybody should set aside time to really allow for those creative processes or juices to flow. You got to
Mhm.
give yourself time to think about potential ideas that can take off. Google does this, FedEx does it. They all have days or times in place where they'll just sit around and in a room together and think of ideas together and how they
Mhm.
can forward the business in creative ways. Because if you're always working and running around, you don't have time to think.
Right.
But if you sit in a room, you're gonna get a lot of thoughts coming in. We don't have much else to do, and it goes back to my business partner and I that are, together today in business is, we essentially started from just getting together and thinking of different ideas. And
Mhm.
the answer was in front of us the whole time. It was fitness, but we only got to it because we had vetted out so many other bad ideas. And I call them bad ideas because I mean there was some really funny ones in there that I'm like, wow, well, where were our heads at? And it's important that you find those that you don't like doing, because those will
Uh-huh.
find the good ideas through those.
Right.
And the bad ideas aren't terrible. They help you find out what you don't want to do, and that gets you closer to the better or to the good idea.
Mhm. And I think that's important. I mean, you have a business partner, like you said, Google, they have a whole team. And so a lot of people listening might be like, well, I'm by myself. Like, I don't have a team to do that with. And so recommending just reaching out to other business owners, maybe, and maybe even they form a group together to have a mastermind together or whatever maybe they have a business coach or something, but having someone that you can talk to about that, I think is really important.
It's one of the most beneficial ways. I mean, I think you and I were speaking offline about masterminds, and the benefit of having multiple perspectives come to you and
Hmm.
challenge or better your thought processes and ideas is something that could take you years to do.
Hmm.
If you just go around, reading certain things, or if you don't read, or if you don't watch beneficial programs, or you're not in circles where you're advancing your business ideologies, you're not getting much intake or resources to further that process along.
Right.
So doing something like a mastermind, or sitting down and having creative conversations can allow for so much advancement in saving time.
Hmm. It's so true too, because if you're so focused on it, sometimes you don't see the answer, but having a conversation with others who have a different perspective or different experience, then they can bring that to the table.
That's right.
Mhm. So, in terms of delegating too, I think that it's important to have some kind of process or a system so that the person who you're going to delegate to can follow along with what your system or process is. So, from your perspective, then why is creating systems important and how does it help you avoid mistakes?
I was listening to a podcast actually, and the importance of a system is that it's an algorithm based approach, right?
Hmm.
So that you do A, B, C, and you get the desired result, right?
Right.
A D there, or the next step, or whatever the solution is. So, if you have the recipe for a chocolate cake and you do everything that the recipe tells you, you're going to get a chocolate cake.
Right.
And if you veer off the path of or miss a few ingredients, then your chocolate cake's not going to come out right.
Hmm.
And it's not going to taste great. It's not going to have, the same moisture, and, forgive my lack of knowledge in baking, but that was the analogy there. So it's important to have a system in place, because the desired algorithm or desired system gives you the end result. So
Hmm.
if you have team members and employees running around, they don't know what to do when you're not there. It's a
Right.
problem, right? Because then
Hmm.
they rely on you. You're never going to be able to walk away, and then
Hmm.
you won't learn from your mishaps or things that didn't go right. So, documenting, creating, so a Google Drive is
Hmm.
free, and just putting things in there and then saying, we have these resources here that you can always draw back on. And that
Right.
way, no one's lost. They have a map,
Mhm.
and that gets you to where you want to go.
Right. And I tell people too that maybe they're just the only person in their company right now too, that it's a good system for you to actually document everything now anyway, because you're still planning to grow most likely. You're probably going to have to bring on a staff member at some point. So documenting how you do things now will be important down the line so that they can come in and actually do the process the way that you've been doing it. And like you said, not trying to fly by the seat of their pants or something. They're just going to actually have step one, this is how you answer the phone, or this is how you invoice your customer, or this is how you put together this machine or something like that.
100%. And it just makes everything much faster. You don't want to
Hmm.
be doing the same thing over and over again, every single time you encounter something. You want to have a
Right.
system that's in place, so you know what to do. And whether that
Hmm.
be an automatic generated email that goes
Hmm.
out when something happens, can save you 5-10 minutes. And that something as simple as that can save you that amount of time every day. Imagine
Hmm.
sitting down, writing an individual email saying thank you, 100 times a day. You're going to
Hmm.
get a little fatigued doing that. So
Right.
now they've come up with the process of throwing an email back. So you got to have systems where they take on larger things in those
Hmm.
processes. And I think, with what's happening with AI, there's so many changes that are coming in that regard, in a positive way, to just help
Hmm.
business owners free up a lot of that time.
Right. So just start with one process and document it as you go through, start to finish. You don't have to do everything at once, but at least try to get everything. So at some point, somebody can come along and help you. I mean, then you can at least take a vacation or something, right, in your company. How many people never even take time off in their company because there's nobody to actually help them?
That's right. And also to have everything that you have in your mind
Hmm.
on paper, right? So the
Right.
more important question you want to ask yourself is, everything, heaven forbid, or whenever, burns down or is gone,
Hmm.
what's left? And is there something, a file or an archive we can pull out from and say, okay, here it all is. It's all protected. It's all here. We can
Right.
replicate this. We can duplicate
Hmm.
this.
Yes, that's a fabulous idea too. I do the same thing. I have things stored on site, but I also have cloud-based storage too. So God forbid something happens in the office and or your computers die or something, you do have everything saved somewhere else as well. So that's a fabulous tip you just shared too. Google Drive or Dropbox or whatever, like you
Yeah,
suggest, using something to store it.
that's right.
That's great. Great point. So I know we're coming down to the end of the time that we have to share today. I know this has been great talking about effective and productive and delegation and all of that. But there might be some things that the listeners want to connect with you on to learn more. So how, I assume you have some kind of offer you might want to share with them. So what would you have for them?
Yeah, so I have my website, www.thevalueverse.com, where I offer free PDFs there that you can download. You don't have to enter any information or anything like that. Just hit download and it's there, it's yours. These are things that I pick up along the way, or things that I learned.
Mhm.
So I'll be, pardon the dust there as I'm putting the website together and cleaning it up a little bit. So I always have offers on there, and that's uh, thevalueverse.com/download. So you can also go to the website and click on the download tab. You can also listen to the Valueverse podcast, where I always do have guest interviews and do solo episodes that I always just try to add value on the things that I learned.
Mhm. Well, I love that too. That's kind of my purpose too. I want to help business owners and by presenting information to them that will help them be successful. Hence, this is why I wanted to have this topic too. I thought it was a great topic. So I know hopefully they'll be reaching out to you for that. But how else can they connect with you?
So I'm very active on Instagram, and that's what's the handles at Valueverse. So all one word, at Valueverse on Instagram, and I'm very active on there. And I always drop little tidbits and infographics there to just daily posts to help you kind of get some insights and add more value to your life.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Kawan, for being a guest on my show and sharing your expertise with the listeners today.
Candy, thank you so much for having me on. I love the content and the work that you're doing. Great podcast, and keep up the awesome work.
Thank you. So, and to the listener, thank you for joining us today. I hope you found this topic interesting and that did answer some questions about effective versus productive work. If you have any additional questions or comments, be sure to reach out to Kawan at the link that he shared or send us a message at media@abandp.com. And would you please share our show information with those you know? I'd really appreciate your support. I hope you can join us for next week's topic, the 5 stages of growth for the early stage business. And please remember you can connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And my website is abandp.com. Remember, you can find the podcast posted on multiple favorite podcast platforms, including iHeartRadio and Spotify. Until next time, have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next Tuesday. Have a terrific week.